everything golden. Finding your greatest love, your highest adventures, the joy that brings you into the paradise life that you've always wanted to be living. It all starts with you and going deep inside. Everything golden. Featuring Francesca Rose and David Starr, where miracles come true every episode. Here are your hosts. Get ready, get ready, get ready. All right. Welcome to Everything Golden with your host, David Starr.
And Francesca Rose.
And this is brought to you by Divine Ray, your higher consciousness social media, francescarose.com. Find your Omni Goddess. We are extremely excited. We are so blessed to have a humanitarian, an amazing author in the SAVI Ministries. It's Santiago Vitagliano. Did I say that right? Vitagliano.
Yeah, that's close enough. Just call me Savvy. Everybody goes by Savvy with me. So reason why I
Savvy.
came up with that nickname because my last Italian last name is not easy pronounceable. Vitagliano.
Vitagliano.
I'm Italian
Wonderful.
too.
Welcome to Everything Golden. We're super excited that it's very ironic that it all starts with you and going deep within. And you have an amazing story with with one of your books, with The Journey Begins Within, and how it all started. I don't want to spoil it. I just want to let you go, and please do share.
Yeah, let me for the benefit of your viewers give a little disclaimer that I like to tell everybody. I'm about to say things that may be shocking to some viewers. It may trigger others. Just take what resonates with you and let the other thing be. Don't judge me because at the end of the day, I am just a witness, and the role I am here to fulfill is that of relating what has happened to me. And if you judge me, basically, you're just judging yourself. It's a very big mirror. So, as he stated, I guess this podcast is not so much about a book or a couple of books that I wrote. Unbeknown to me that I was writing when it all started, but it was by divine design and actually mandate that I had to write those books, and I'll share. I've lived a pretty much normal life within the confines of a middle class family. I was brought up and raised in Argentina, but the spiritual realm or divinity had other plans for me. I ticked all the boxes that society told me I needed to tick. I went to university, I went to Catholic private school, got married, tried to have a family, worked very hard, became an entrepreneur, a very successful, medium, I guess for normal standards, successful. Obviously not a multi-millionaire or billionaire, but I was doing quite well. Although my clients were mostly billionaires, and from a scientific background, I have a couple of master's degrees. So spirituality or religion, although I was brought up Catholic, I went to Catholic school, was not in the forefront of my daily activities. I was solely focused for the past 25 years in creating my own little empire and enjoying, good things in life, a boat, a plane, nice house, children which were not of my own, but I actually had dated somebody for 10 years who, from a prior marriage, had three children, and I raised them like they were my own, and I loved them like they were my own. But all of this came to a halt. And I fought tooth and nail to preserve everything. But when you're being called, or like they say these days, involved being chosen, God has other plans and it shows itself to you and through you. And the reason why I'm here and the reason why I created the SAVI Ministries and the reasons why the books were channeled was because the Spirit, and when I mean the Spirit, is short for the Holy Spirit for those who are Catholic or believe in religion, uh, told me so. The first visitation of the Spirit was when I was 6. I was in a neighborhood called Belgrano. I was 6 and a half, came from school. It was 4 p.m. And I heard a voice, omnidirectional voice that told me, what would you want to do in this life? Of course, in my native tongue, which is Spanish. And I said at the time, well, I want to get to know Jesus and I want to be like Jesus, being that I was going to Catholic school. I felt sort of like this and presence sort of giving me the acknowledgement of my request. And then basically I said, wait, don't leave, as I felt this presence leave. And the voice then said, today I'm going to leave you, but later on you will find me. And then my life was not without a lot of conflict. I guess those who carried this sort of um, double-edged sword, if you may call it, of being somehow selected by the divine to fulfill a specific role, have a light within us that attracts a lot of darkness. So darkness has been an eternal companion in my life. And to the degree that I embody the light, that darkness actually materialized to juxtapose my brightness. So for many, many, many years, I tried to shy away from all of this and try to just act normal as to all these metaphysical events happening in my life. In fact, I almost, for about 10 years, went on a quest trying to understand everything that was missing from religion, at least the religion I was brought up to. And I traveled the world trying to understand what the truth was. I'm a very regular kind of guy. I've done everything in my life that most guys have done, and at least try to blend in most circumstances. But I was never fitting in with anything and anybody, primarily because there was an aspect of my own self, which was I was not aware of until recently, that would repel all of that. And my only claim to fame, like I like to say, is that I was a zealot for the truth and the absolute truth. And I couldn't stand anything that were lies. And I had like, I would say an internal radar, internal compass guiding me, telling me this is a lie, go deeper. This is a lie, go deeper. So by the time I was in my mid 30s, I realized that religion wasn't it. And there were things that they were telling me that weren't necessarily 100% truth. And throughout my years, I've been through different countries and explored different religions, from Islam to Judaism to Buddhism, and none of them gave me the full answer that I was looking for. And something within me, unbeknown to me at the time, which was the spirit itself that inhabits within every single one of us, was guiding me through this whole journey. And throughout the journey, it was putting situations, people, and places, and sometimes metaphysical events for me to actually become aware and raise my awareness. Now, I fought really hard tooth and nail to stay in the shadows, not to do any of all of this, and to sort of try to have my claim to fame in the business world. And the more resistance I did to my calling, the harder the challenges and the hardships that would come my way. I would say that the culmination of this resistance was when I was in my mid 30s. I was extremely dark place. I was even considering suicide at one point because as a misfit, nothing was working out for me. I went to a private party in Miami Beach where I used to live in South Beach here in Florida. And this Jewish lady descent approached me and started talking to me. I wanted to know if I was Catholic and if I could share some of the teachings I knew about Jesus, the Virgin Mary, and the apostles. And I said, well, listen, okay, fine, sounds good. We only had a glass of wine. We spoke for hours. It was about 3 in the morning, and I won't go through all the details, but at one point, this lady says, well, I feel better. She was also sort of borderline, very depressed, and confessed that she was suicidal. And being an empath, at the time I didn't know I was an empath, I just felt inside of me something saying, you just don't let her go like that. And she says, well, I would like to wash your feet. And I said, no, listen, I don't know what you're into, but this is not my cup of tea. You don't need to wash my feet. You can just go home. And, I'm very tired. She says, no, it's a Jewish tradition. It's honoring you for everything you've done for me. So she started washing my feet, to which point her face transfigured that into a demon. Now, you can watch all the horror movies you want in Hollywood, and none of them come even close to the reality of having a demon in front of you and actually holding your feet. I wish I could tell you that I was a brave gladiator that, I think myself to be, but at the time I was scared to death, literally. And this entity was offering me all kinds of things and telling me what has God done for you lately. Look at your life, look at all the pain you've been going through, look how everything goes through, and nothing actually pans out the way you think, how people treat you, so on and so forth. And there's one thing about me is that my dad has taught me to be an honorable man. and to be a man of my word. And one thing that I knew I was not going to do is subdue myself to that entity. And I said, well, if I'm going to die today, I'm going to die with honor. And all I said was no. And that's when the fireworks started. That was the first time that God actually presented himself through me in that room. And I'm going to go into some of the details, but not all of them right now, because otherwise it's going to be an extremely long interview. But my body started shaking as something so powerful that is indescribable. There are no words to describe the feeling was coming through me. And what I just realized I missed in all this conversation is that we were speaking in an ancient language, or what I understood to be an ancient language. This demon was talking to me in this ancient language, and I would understand it. And then God took control of my motor skills and my body, and it's almost like I became an observer within my own self, and God answers through me to this entity. And basically, I didn't understand at the time what was happening, but later I realized it was God because of the reaction of the entity. And what God said was very simple. It says, leave my son alone, or I will come down to destroy you. And at that point, this energy that was within me kind of left my chest, and I felt this expansion wave going to in front of me. And this entity crawled out of the woman, walked through the wall, through the ceiling of my room, and out through the window. And there was this sort of long black feather that went into the woman's chest. And when that severed, the woman fell into the ground and started shivering and says, I don't want to die. I don't want to die. It's baptized me. I jumped, I hold her. And at the time, I was, and I still are away from all kinds of religion, and you'll know eventually why, and the church. But I remember from my Catholic days in Catholic school, in an event of an emergency, we are authorized to baptize. So I baptized her, and we held each other waiting for sunrise. At the time, it was like 4:30 in the morning, both scared that this thing would come in. I kept being in denial. I mean, I'm 53 now, and that was probably 23 years ago. And I kept on pushing all these things to the side. But I would say that by 2022, the calling started to be relentless. At the time, I had the first encounter with the spirit, but outside my body, let's put it that way. What others understand to be the Holy Spirit, like they state in the Bible. I woke up at 4 in the morning with this huge bright light, like a spotlight on top of myself at bed. And I thought somebody was entering the house. I used to live in a three-story townhouse here in Fort Lauderdale, and somebody was mugging me. So I'm kind of like opening my eyes, looking at this bright light on top of me, and I'm looking around. And I see nobody around me. Um, and all of a sudden, I tried to look up, and I saw like what I call divine confetti. I have no other words to describe it other than this beautiful rays and golden things falling on top of me. And it was so bright that it was blinding, so I couldn't see. And basically, this presence told me, relax, don't be afraid. And then started speaking. And again, like when I was a kid, the same feeling. But this time, the voice, every time it spoke, there were little bright stars that would pop in front of me in the room in pitch darkness. And it was beautiful. And that was the beginning of the unraveling of my own identity. Now, this visitation marked the threshold of a series of events of bad actors that I was working with or affiliated with that would eventually destroy everything I had created for the past 25 years, one of which is in federal custody already, but basically scammers and fraudsters that unfortunately took me through a situation where they took everything I had in terms of my financial acumen and completely destroyed me financially. I followed the commands of the Holy Spirit, what the Spirit told me, which was basically to let everything be in God's hands and to be a choiceless observer and sit still and just watch how everything evolved. And if it wasn't because of another event that had happened prior, which we can touch, but I just want to go through the major ones, I would not have believed what was going on. And I think it was July of 2022. By December of that same year, I was doing a juice fast, trying to look for answers. And every time I tried to elevate myself and connect with spirit or the divine, I either do a water fast like Jesus did, or a juice fast because as I'm getting older, they're getting harder and harder for me to do as I get thinner and thinner. Sometimes it's just harder to. The longest fast I've done with water's been 20 days, and that was
Wow.
when the major breakthrough started about 4 years ago. And the longest I've done on a fast mimicking diet when I heard the calling first, I think that was in 2018, about 7 years ago, was 40 days with only 500 calories. And we'll get into that, but I don't want to get out of the main events. And and basically, the spirit visited me again and sort of gave me um, a heightened level of awareness of what the events were going to happen. And I had a choice to make if I were to accept it or not. And what happens is when you're in communion, the true communion, not the one that the church tells you, but when you're in communion with the Holy Spirit and with God Himself, your awareness expands to a divine level, to your innate abilities. In other words, the veil gets pulled out and you become your higher self, which is your soul, right? And your consciousness operates on the awareness of your soul level, which is not the human level. So many of the things and many of the interactions that happen between you and the divine outside of yourself at that level, you cannot retain when you're brought back to your humanity. Let's put it that way. And it's purposely designed because that's the whole reason why we're here on Earth, right? Is to have these experiences as humans to sort of go through the fire and to understand the choices we have already made while we're making them while we're here on Earth. And I said, okay, yes, I accept. And that's when pretty much my life and my ego and my prior existence was got completely shattered, or the beginning of that. In January, I traveled to Brazil to meet somebody who I have come across who also was having divine apparitions and experiences. Somebody who's very dear to me, and out of respect for her anonymity, I won't mention names. And during the week that we interacted in Brazil, um, she performed a miracle. We were in the grocery stores, and I always had a very big knot in my heart, like from all the childhood wounds that I had. I always had this sort of heaviness in my heart. For other people, you can say that my heart chakra was completely closed or obstructed. And I was buying groceries in the supermarket, and the spirit spoke to her and said, "Heal him." And she put her hand in my back. And at the time, I had a vision, if you can say, of this warm, beautiful white light going through my body, wrapping my heart and shifting my heart out of position. And I felt something inside of me change. And the reason I bring this up was because that was a Wednesday, and that Saturday morning, Sunday, I was still in denial of all these things happening. And I was praying to God, say, God, show me a sign that I'm not going crazy. And this is when the divine himself visited. And this has been the most profound, or the secondly most profound apparition before experiencing Christ consciousness that I had, which I woke up at 4 in the morning, surrounded by a bright light now. There was almost 180 degrees in front of me in a bubble of white light. I could barely see the edges of the room. This huge lotus flower opening and closing by my side, and this bright star right in front of me, so bright that I was being blinded. And again, my body shaking with this energy coming from the core of my being, that I felt every single one of the cells of my body was about to burst. Um, and I was just at awe what I was looking at. And then again, this sense of peace that comes telepathically when you know you are in the presence of a divine being, in this case, the divine himself, saying everything is okay, don't be afraid. And once I understood this, he spoke again, 360 degrees. And the message was a very simple one. I came to wake you up so you finally understand that I am you and you're me. And I thought I was dying. I'm saying, okay, I'm dying because this is it, right? This is the white light, this is the tunnel. And I tried to touch the flower and then I passed out. And the very next morning, I woke up, I came to US, and I was still in denial. I said, none of this is happening. I'm going crazy. I'm just going to keep to myself. And that's when the stripping of my ego or the dissolution of my old self and my ascension really started. I had to be stripped bare of everything that I thought I was to understand that I'm nothing. And in the meantime, understanding who we truly are and the integration of all these messages and all these apparitions. About 626 days ago from today, I was with my ex-girlfriend. We went on a tour of 7 countries. We went to visit to a wedding in Greece for one of our best friends, couple super sweet to us. And I normally go into a raw vegan diet and primarily fruit if I want to be in communion with the spirit. And a week after the wedding, we were supposed to we were waiting on a layover, let's say, for a charter of a catamaran that I did in the Ionic Islands. And we were on the Zen resort in Greece, and all I was eating apples, which is one of my favorite fruits, and meditating all mornings under beautiful pine trees by the turquoise waters. So I was in a very peaceful state. There was sort of 2 short miracles that happened during that week that are not as relevant as the one I want to share right now, so I won't bring them up. I think I do relate them in the book. But on the 6th day of the journey in the catamaran, as I was continuing on this diet, it was noontime. I was just sitting there watching the beautiful ocean and in total peace. And I think it's been now over 15 years that I managed to quiet the monkey brain and I'm able to be in the present, meaning just be here with no thoughts and be in what I call my nothing box, just contemplating. And I was in one of those events when the veil was parted 100%, unlike before. And I experienced total oneness, Christ consciousness. In the easiest way to describe this is the divine became me, and SAVI, Santiago, stopped existing. And I knew myself to be the divine itself, incarnated in this body with no attachment to any ego or any identity. And the most magical thing of all of this experience was the realization that the whole universe was basically bowing in front of me. Like I could feel the presence of any molecule, my consciousness, anywhere I looked around me. It was beautiful, unlike the 3D that we see here. It was surreal. At the time, I didn't understand I had entered the kingdom, or what Jesus described the kingdom of heaven is within you and are all around you. And I was experiencing the kingdom all around me and within me. And it was almost like this subtle hum of angels singing. I don't even know how to describe it, but the whole of creation was bowing in front of me in the sense of, you're it. And there were every single thing in front of me saying, you're it. And once I understood that, what I call God or Father or the Creator asked me one simple question. At the time, I realized that He had given me all my powers. And He asked me one single question. Now that you know everything and you understand everything, by the way, this is the only thing He's allowed me to remember from this experience. There was much more encompassing, but I honestly, every time I play back in my head, I know some things have been sort of censored for my good and the good of humanity. And what would you change? And I think this was the ultimate test that he was subjecting me to. And I realized that there was nothing to change because everything was perfect and complete. And in his plan, everything had already happened. And we're just living through a simulation of a reality that's playing out uh, for us to understand his plans and for his own enjoyment of the act of co-creation. And I said nothing. And then the moment I said nothing, I remember coming down from this state of awareness to a human state and this dragonfly going around me because every time the spirit had visited me in the past 3 years or an event that required me having confirmation on this 3D plane that it was happening and I'm not going crazy was this dragonfly. So I had this deal with the spirit and said, every time that you're doing something weird and you want me to remember that it's not me having some sort of delusional situation in my brain, send me a sign that I would know is for me that this is real. And for the last 3 years, it's been the dragonfly. That's why in my book you have the cover of the dragonfly. And for the last 626 days since that happened, I continue to integrate all these experiences. I continue to shed my own identity, but most importantly, started walking the walk that I'm supposed to walk and being a true disciple of Jesus, not what religion tells you, but living according to his mandates, eating according to his mandates, and walking in 100% of the integrity that his true mandates dictate, right? And I want to make that distinction because the Christian and Catholic faith claim they're righteous,
Mhm.
I guess, throne to be the chosen ones, but little do they know that unless they truly walk Jesus' footsteps, they are not being saved. They're just delusional. And only when you experience our divine right of being in true communion with God Himself, with our Father, is that you know you've done something right and you actually are in His grace, right? And you truly saved. Not that we need saving, but let's just say that you will be allowed to continue having your identity or this level of awareness in the afterlife without you having to reincarnate and start fresh again under a different identity until you finally get it right.
Mhm.
So this has been my journey. The first book came through a juice fast that I was doing on, I think it was April and May of 2022. It all started with one letter, and then every day at 4 in the morning, I would be in front of the computer and words would just come. When I thought I was done, I heard the voice of the Spirit say, "Now I want you to go and tell the world everything that I've done through you and with you." So the rest of the chapters came through, and I wrote it. And it had some sort of success, but as you can imagine, people are not necessarily nice when you come and you challenge their identity, let alone their own religious identity. And so far, I think it has reached the people that had to touch. And then I continued to explore ways in which I could reach more people. So I started my YouTube channel, not knowing a single thing about videography or creating videos. And last year, when I was in Argentina in August, I took all this past 2 years as sort of sabbaticals, trying to piece my life and understand what it is that was expected from me. And not necessarily knowing which way I was going, but just trusting the divine, trusting that there's a greater purpose for all this madness that I've been through and continue to go through. And, being of an engineering mindset, all of this has been extremely hard because it has been the denial of my ego and all my identifications and my prior life and my prior self, and just acting from the heart. And as I was walking every day in Buenos Aires, I was receiving downloads of awareness and wisdom of all these lessons of my life and what it meant. So I would write them down. And then when I came back to the US, I started putting them together in a manuscript that eventually became Awakened Path. And now all the videos I'm publishing is one of these lessons. And so it's in the newsletter because I figure that is the easiest way that I can reach millions of people, which we are doing.
Mhm.
Again, all of my own pocket with no intents of profit. And I haven't received zero donations or very little. I mean, I spend thousands of dollars in Amazon
Amazing.
and publishing all of this with no help or support from anybody. In fact, actually, to the guys who stole my $16,000 in New York and in India, thank you for doing that because you just one more of the lessons in my life that I put in the book. So all kinds of attacks from darkness and people you can imagine. And I just continue to do it out of sheer love for the divine, for unconditional love for humanity, and understanding now that there's no difference between you, me, and everybody else. We're all the same. We're all the divine, having amnesia, walking our lives with different identities, right? One is David, the other one's Francesca, the other one is Santi. And we came to experience this simulation that we call Earth for the purpose of getting to know ourselves and understanding the contrast between light and darkness for us to reinforce our choice to either embody light or not. And then we get to do it all over again until we do. So that's sort of like the broad scope of everything that I've been through, everything that I'm going through. and the reasons behind all of this. I have zero intentions for fame or fortune at this point. I could care less about the material. Although, as the irony of God with me is such that the minute I say no to something and I don't want it, He gives me in 100 times that. Because for the last 7 months, I had the pleasure to become really close on a brothers in Christ friendship that I have with my business partner Jared, who's also some, you can call him another chosen one, who has had his own journey with the Spirit, and he received his own downloads to create this platform for enlightening beings and for funding projects that are for the new earth or the kingdom. And I got the downloads about conscious capitalism, if you want to call it, by which, we actually create this redistribution of wealth that has not happened for the last 2,000 years to free humanity and actually treat each human being according to their divine birthright, right? And not just expendable like society makes us believe we are. And my personal quest is the truth. And the truth is, I cannot allow for my brothers and my sisters to continue being slaves to a system that perpetrates lies of who they are and what they're worth. And somehow, since we are childs, we are indoctrinated that we have to prove our worth and we only receive what we are worth in the eyes of the others. But all of that is a lie because we are all the divine. So we are all inherently worth everything. And
Yeah.
we choose these experiences to teach ourselves what it is to be worthy. And until we don't learn unconditional love for ourselves and unconditional love for others, we don't get to experience much of the spoils of the kingdom. Let's put it that way. So, anyhow, all of this is gestating, all of this is happening. In the meantime, I honestly am in total surrender, living in the present moment. And I'm very grateful for you guys reaching out because I have done these interviews in the past, but I certainly was not ready. I was still in denial. I think it was over 2 years ago that I done my last podcast, and a lot has happened since. And I'm about to start traveling globally with my ministry. I won't disclose where I'm going next just because for
Well,
many
we
practical
definitely want to
reasons.
get into the ministry part and everything, but I
Yeah,
just want to do a little reflection because that was so much amazing
Yeah.
thank you.
information that you were bringing forward. I had actually prepared a lot of questions, which we'll save for another episode, because
Yeah.
there's all of this like pre questions that are coming up. Because when somebody who is speaking so authentically with the relationship with God and how God speaks and how He brings you into awareness and asks you these questions, it's authentic, and you can tell anybody who has a strong relationship with the divine that Savi's relationship is likely one of the strongest, and he's being visited by amazing, well, Father God himself, of course, and then very, very strong universal celestial being with the starlight, and the lotus, is a very peaceful flower back in the Lemurian times that they used when Earth was in pure love-based reality. It was a symbol of unity, and it brought in this great love, the order of the lotus, the Lemurians, and
Mhm.
the so what I'm feeling is there's so much love for you from the divine, and I can feel it when you're talking. You can't deny it. It's absolutely there, and everything that you're saying is absolutely happening. One of the wildest things is when I started tuning in onto your energy field, I saw all this Christed light coming in, all these Christed grids. So you're fully like embodying all of the ascended Christed consciousness, which is fascinating. I absolutely love how you love Jesus, Yeshua, and are following his in the footsteps he has, because he was the greatest that, and he is still the greatest that has ever existed on earth, in my opinion, as far as a leader, a teacher, and a divine being fully embodied as God is. And it's just incredible, all these things that you're saying. So one of my questions, it comes down to the how, uh, on the journey begins within the awakened path and the SAVI Ministries. How has the lessons and the knowledge that you've learned with being in parallel with Yeshua or Jesus, how does that come through your teachings?
Um, well, I don't teach. I simply show up and things happen.
That's awesome.
Ah, yeah, so I wish it was me. Um, I I just empty myself and calm my brain, and then the spirit takes over, and whatever needs to come through comes through, and I just say what's coming through, and basically it creates an imprint on the other person and basically allows them to release whatever falsehoods and false identity they have, and they have a breakthrough. And in the most profound of cases, like the one I mentioned or briefly touched over in Greece, I had an out of body experience standing right there where the divine took me out of my body, took me to point zero, what I call, where I'm in 100% communion with it, basically, and put me back into my body just to let me know that, hey, I got it. This is me. And I'm like, if I'm normally in surrender, when that happens, I'm in 100% surrender. And basically, this sort of divine energy leaves my body and reaches the other person as an expansion wave of energy that the other person feels. And then they react based on that, and they have a release based on that. And that has happened only once so far. But, again, the dragonfly showing up through all these events. And honestly, every time I travel, and this is the reason why I have this sort of desperate something inside of me, a calling of traveling and traveling, and I want to just go through the world because Spirit uses me and takes me here, takes me there, and puts these people in front of me, and then things happen. And I'm just sort of there for eating popcorn, watching everything happen because it's never up to me. It has never been up to me, right? It's always up to Father and His Spirit and what He wants of me, and that's it. I mean, the only thing that I can say is me, is having the highest of integrity and trying to live the most righteous life I possibly can. And I have had my fair share of blunders and dark past and all kinds of things. And and I always ask him, why you chose me? Why me? Why me? I mean, I'm a sinner like everybody else, but I guess it's not so much who you were, but what your heart is, and where your heart is really what matters, and the kind of heart and the way you love and the way you give of yourself unconditionally, that counts. If you ask me, based, if I could were to distill in this whole ascension journey, it's all about being able to love unconditionally regardless of what has happened to you or what other people are doing to you. And touching a little bit on Jeshua, um, that was his biggest lesson, right? We all one and the same, and we all need to love each other unconditionally, no matter what happens. And then walking over water is just basically ignoring what the simulation is throwing at you and just have your eyes on Jesus and walk His walk. I mean, being a good Christian is not going to church and calling Him my Lord and Savior for an hour and then just going out and forgetting about it. And then, shoving whatever you shove yourself through in this modern society through your mouth. You got to eat what He ate. You got to fast that He fasted, and you got to walk His walk. Unless you are an hypocrite, otherwise you're just an hypocrite. You know, you just think you're doing the right thing, but you're not. That's why Christianity and Catholicism have it as strong as the Islam and Buddhism, because they're all good tools, but they don't get you all the way to the top of the mountain. I always make the analogy that experiencing Christ consciousness was like reaching the top of the Himalayas naked.
Mhm.
And each religion walks a path that gets you halfway through the mountain. And they all take you to dead ends because any practice takes you to that dead end. See, we are misinformed or I guess purposely or unpurposely, is the blind leading the blind with respect to all respect to the blind. But it's not the act of doing, it's the act of being. And most importantly, is the lack of doing that allows you to be in communion with spirit. It's when you stop being or acting the identity that you thought you had to be, that you are able to embody who you truly are. And it's in the total stillness within yourself. And that means emotionally, intellectually, and physically, that you're able to begin to ascend to the levels of awareness that Yeshua was explaining. But don't get confused. You don't get to the top of the mountain unless the divine himself takes you there. There's no act of being or act of doing that takes you up from a certain glass ceiling, if you may. Only if you say, let's say it's a video game, right? You have enough tokens, and then basically, the creator of the video game says, okay, you've been good boy for the last 20 years. You have accumulated enough tokens. Now you get to play on the next level, right? And that's sort of what has happened to me, and I think happens to many of the people who reach this level of awareness
I have a
and
question.
consciousness. Yeah.
So do you think, like, I resonate with everything like that you've said, and it sounds a lot like my journey too. Like our journeys are very similar. Do you think that in the I'm vegan too. Are you still vegan, or do you just do it like when you're trying to channel, or you
2018 was the first time that I heard the voice of spirit tell me leave all animal products.
Yep,
And since then I've been vegan. And then when I want to be ascended, I go raw.
me too.
And that's what I'm right now. I'm in a stage of being raw vegan.
Mhm.
And mostly 80% fruit and 20% greens and some nuts and seeds and avocados. Stay away from the coffee, no alcohol.
I don't drink
And
coffee either or drink alcohol.
yeah.
If people don't realize the purification of it all, that raises your vibration to be in the higher realms. Like and it's all through, me and David talk about this all the time in our book, making sacred space with your body. And it's not just what you ingest, it's huge. People don't realize, like, you go to another level when you're raw vegan or when you're fasting for a long time, but it's everything you're ingesting. It's the TV, the people you're around when you're around like the negative vibrational energies. And it seems like you've done that. You're doing the unwinding of all the energies that are not you, and you're doing the purification of everything. And like, it seems to me like you've reached God's source embodiment, and now you're just like this open channel of God source energy, you know, channeling everything through. And I love how you said that about the box thing, you're a nothing box with no thoughts. Because oftentimes I say, I don't like to think, when you have no mind, you're one with the divine. When you just let the God energy channel through you. And you're the first other person I heard say that. That was so interesting.
Well, here's the crazy thing, right? I call myself an spiritual explorer until I found the truth. I kept asking, so I wanted to know the absolute truth, and all truth is subjective to the eyes of the viewer. So one day, I was shown the absolute truth, and he took me through 12 of his kingdoms, and then, in fact, he took me outside of him and said, "See, there's nothing outside that I am not." Even you are me, and you're just a
Mhm.
thought within me. And I was, oh, I get it, Dad. I get it now. So then he brought me back. But yeah, so um, there's nothing outside God, and people don't get
Yep.
it. They think of
Yeah.
themselves like, oh, God doesn't exist. And every time I come across one of those, I laugh. I laugh so hard because I'm like, one day you'll know that you don't exist.
Yeah, yeah, we're all God. Me and David
Yeah.
talk about this all the time, trying to explain it to people, but it's just like, it's such a hard concept to grasp since we're so conditioned and programmed. I went to Catholic school too, and they program you to think God's outside of you. And we are all one eternal source, omni creational energy, and we have the same mission as you. We're trying to spread it, but it's just, people just
You
don't
know,
get it yet.
Francesca, it's not good for business for the intermediaries if everybody realized they were God, and it's not
Yeah,
good for government either.
yeah, that that makes sense. Yeah, that's why. But, it's out there now, and I think people are catching on, and we're going into the higher reality within ourselves. Everything is done like within, but people don't realize that. But I love that you're just saying it all, coming out with it, and it's what people need to hear. The
Yeah,
truth, the
the
actual
time
divine
has
truth.
come. Yeah, it's about time now for people to wake up, and that's my message.
Now,
Wake up.
how
And
do you know this? Because you're the only person that I've actually heard talk about this other than myself, about if you do not find it, you have to do it again.
Mhm.
Are you referring to this life?
yes, I mean, I've been shown that I had had many lives before and where I had failed. In some of this journey, I had I had gone to Peru and I communed with the Shipibo Indians and I did some ayahuasca ceremonies. And during the ceremonies, I had a very different experience than every single one of the other participants. I guess primarily because of my own journey and where I was. And the veil was pulled again there. And instead of, seeing animals and having all these data experiences, I was communing with angels, orbs of light, to be honest, in their natural form. We all orbs of light. And they were showing me the nature of this matrix and the simulation. And in fact, they did show me prior lifetimes. And to the degree I wanted to know the answer. And basically, when I was back in Costa Rica and I was just eating fully raw and I was fasting, and I was just communing with nature on the day I got ascended again and just by being me. And Spirit was channeling and giving me information and basically told me this is where you failed last time. And the key to release where you're at is being a choiceless observer and sitting still and just being you. And at the time, I was not as aware as I am now. This was about 2 years ago in the beginning of this last period of cycle of ascension. And I was like, well, no, wait, tell me more, give me more instructions. And I just didn't realize I was giving the keys. And of course, obviously, I had to integrate all of that. And when you truly realize and integrate that you're the divine having this experience, there's nothing for you to do. You just have to be what you already are and allow for everything around you to come to you. And you calling it subconsciously what's needed. And the simulation will change according to the vibration and the level of awareness that you carry. And depending on what karma you have had from prior lifetimes or, family cycles and whatnot, you will have to face that until you clear all of that, right? Do the dirty work
Yeah.
and face the darkness. And that's what I've been doing all these years and all this time to where, for whatever reason, I believe that I just finished that cycle and now I'm on a clean slate. And
Yeah.
there's this new timeline that is opening up for me, and everything that I've been preparing for is beginning to actually take place
Which is the
without me
SAVI
moving a
Ministries.
finger.
Like, let's talk about
Yes.
that. Let's talk about the SAVI Ministries. Um, of course, when you go to the savvyministries.com, you can find your amazing three books: The Journey Begins Within, Awaken Paths, and the SAVI Ministries, which is a holistic and health, a lot about this, the raw and the vegan dieting and the
Yeah.
integrating.
So basically, the mandate I received from Spirit was very simple. Go and share with the world everything that I have told you and I have done through you. And that was an all-encompassing mandate. So it pretty much didn't leave me any room for negotiation. So I had to start putting together everything that I had experienced one way or another and sharing it with the world to the best of my abilities, and then just basically offering it to the Spirit and to the divine and say, do as you may with this, right? And that's what I've been doing. And for the last 3 years, I've been putting all this information together. Now, The Journey Begins Within is the first book that I had channeled, and that sort of relates the major milestones of what has happened in my life and some of the visions that I had as to what's wrong with the world. And that was before I got the downloads of conscious capitalism and what it is that is expected of me going forward. And then Awakened Paths was after my awakening, after my divine encounter with Christ and in Greece, and all the downloads I got from my life lessons. So I put them in the book, and then nobody was buying the book. So I said, I got to do better than this. So I started trying to reach through a newsletter that I put together, the SAVIMinistries.com, and an audience that could help me, spread the word and spread those lessons. And I started then uploading the videos on YouTube. And I'm about 8 videos away from having everything programmed until July of 2027. And everything coincides, divine timing is always perfect. Everything coincides with me taking off from the US. I'm going around the world and just basically being present and being of service. And honestly, I don't program anything anymore. I simply go where my heart tells me to go and do what my heart tells me to do, and then allow God to take over. And so I know it sounds crazy for the uninitiated, but that's the act of being in surrender and the act of being, an empty chalice for the divine, in an analogy that, you can relate to. And where we'll go from that, I don't know. I have a couple of brothers who, one is in Costa Rica and the other one is in Colombia. We spoke about doing retreat centers there, and basically bringing in CEOs that want to learn about higher awareness and higher consciousness, given my background, and teaching them, key aspects of this journey so they could be better stewards of the capital they have and treat people with more humanely, and realize that human capital is their biggest asset, and it's not the financial capital that's serving the wrong master, but instead they have to serve the humans that are behind their success. Unlike these billionaires that we'll hear about that basically always create these nonprofits after they have all this wealth as a way of avoiding the tax man. I went ahead and created these 4 pillars of how capital needs to be allocated in a more fair way, taking on from systems that actually have worked in the past. Unlike, pure capitalism doesn't work, socialism doesn't work, Marxism doesn't work, communism doesn't work. And honestly, the only thing that works is free enterprise, but with a conscience. And I realized that this has to be a roots movement. It cannot be something dictated by governments or by, one guy somewhere. It has to be a raise of the awareness of the people who have more to give to the people that have less, but actually help them get there, right? I think that the grass and the tree both serve nature, and not both of them need to have the same level of awareness to do the job right, but they are a part of Earth. Well, the same with each one of us, right? Not everybody's the CEO, but we all contribute to a cause together. We all need to somehow equalize, on the profit sharing. So what was downloaded to me was that 50% of the reward needs to go to the capital and 50% goes to the human capital. And within the human capital, we all have our own innate abilities, and that's sort of market driven, what people make. In other words, the CEO makes a certain pay, and the guy who mops the street makes a certain pay. But then again, if we're all part of a community and we're all part of a company, there's a big share of that profit that needs to be distributed equally among everybody, sort of like in a cooperative level. And this has been done before. This is not news. I mean, look at Norway and what they did after World War II, and how that society came out from the ruins, right? And now is the wealthiest nation in the world, per capita. And it's just the issue here is, primarily in the United States, is the individualistic mentality of the winner takes all and everybody's expendable and me, and that ego behind that, right? And instead of, becoming a billionaire and then dying and giving everything to charity, why don't you actually give while you are creating your own wealth, right? And that is sort of the new mentality, and what this whole Savvy Ministries is about, is sharing with those who don't have, is expanding the awareness and revealing the truth about God and evil that I have experienced, being a witness and saying this message to whomever wants to listen, and then being of service to the spirit of whomever is in front of me when I channel a message or some spiritual magic happens, right? Let's call it like that. And that's about it, man. I just don't know what's gonna happen. And honestly, I'm okay with the unknowing. I trust 100% on the divine, and I'm in total surrender. And when I die, I just know where I'm going. And when I get there, I just want to be received with laurels. That's it.
Mhm.
Yeah, you're an amazing person. And so I just know if you're watching this or if you're listening to this podcast, go to thesaviministries.com, sign up for the newsletter. Should get these
Thank
books he
you.
has. The Journey Begins Within, The Awakened Past, The SAVI Ministries. You are going to learn so much to be embodied, so much to be in your divine gifts, power,
Mhm.
and in this trust and surrender he's talking about is receiving what it is in your divine path, and these answers and the embodiment and the knowledge will come through like it has with Savi. He is like a legend. I can feel it. And
Mhm.
also he has
Thank you.
doing amazing work to reshape the corporate cultures, and there's literally not enough embodied people on the planet to do this work. And
Yeah.
so it's amazing that you're taking the lead in that because it's definitely required in a big way to reshape the into a unity consciousness and in the business field. So that's fantastic that you're doing all of this. Um, I know we're getting close to the hour. We have this, but I want to make sure if Francesca has any more questions before we get into the rapid fire questions.
Yeah, I mean, I have so many questions for you that hopefully we can have you back on someday. But I had a question about the darkness. This was like very interesting to me. I can tell you've spent a lot of time in the void because I can read people's energy and see your eyes. But when you were with that lady, the one that like the demon came through, was she actually speaking like a demon, or was it all done telepathically? It was like a telepathic dialogue occurring.
No, there was a transfiguration of her face and a superposition of this entity, and it wasn't telepathically. It was verbal
Oh my
through
gosh.
and this entity was holding my feet. Remember, she was washing my feet,
Well, that's where
and
all the energy, that's where all your energy is. When I do healings on people, that's how I pull all the negative energy out of their feet. That's interesting. It was like trying to steal your power through your
Well,
feet.
it's also the tradition in the time of the Essene, they would wash like their feet as a symbol of humbleness.
Hmm.
Uh,
But yeah, I think
yes,
it had to do with power.
Joshua did that to all his apostles, and
mhm.
yeah, it was a very very profound moment.
I could
Yeah,
only
that's so
imagine.
interesting. I wanted to hear more about your dark travels, but that's for another podcast. I think that's interesting. I don't think people talk enough about that because it scares people, but
Well,
I feel like,
it's like a because he's what people in this whole awakening process need to come to grips with is if when you are opening up and you're coming into your divine form, there are just some people on this planet um, that have very important divine roles, and these beings know it. These beings that have been enslaving the human race, and they target uh, like beautifully gifted people like Savvy and others to try to, well,
They will come for you. They
yeah.
will come for you, and you just have to look into Jesus' eyes and keep walking and just trust the divine because it's a test. You have to walk through the fire. I always say I walk through the fire, then the cinders, and then the desert to get where I'm at. It's not an easy path.
mm.
Anybody with half a brain operating would have turned back long ago.
Well, that's a good thing that you're in the full heart and not the brain, right?
Yeah.
Correct.
And it's better that it's coming from you when you tell the stories because there's people out there that are in a lot of darkness and they don't know how to get out. But it coming from someone who's fully embodied in their God embodiment and aligned with their heart, it's better the message is coming from you because it puts them out of fear to like hear the stories, and the way in which you describe them would be different than someone who's still in the in the darkness fighting it.
Let me give you a tip, guys. Let me give you a tip for all of
Okay.
those who are right now wrestling the darkness. You are the divine. You are incarnated. Everything is fake and is a simulation. You've been fed lies all your life. Nothing holds power over you. If you are in your darkest moment, just bow your knee, close your eyes, call upon your Father who's in heaven and within you to rescue you and give you a sign in the name of Jesus, the Christ, and see what happens.
That's beautiful. Yeah, that's what, when I was doing my shadow work, I would always connect with God within my highest source light, and I'd sit in that energy. And I told people, like, I just think about God all the time. I put God, the thinking about God, I know it's all of us, but the thought of God and God energy, I put it in between everybody. And I always know the highest outcome's going to come. And it reminds me of that, like all that you've said today.
Well, guys, I'm here for everybody and anybody who needs help. So anytime you want to have a conversation, and this is just the beginning for me. So I'm available anywhere in the world. I will carry my little ring light on my phone and we can have this conversation.
That's awesome.
All right.
You're
So
amazing.
we do this thing called rapid fire. It's just questions that you can, it's kind of fun, maybe funny a little bit. And you just answer as quickly as possible. This is this little segment we do at the end of every show to make it interesting. So
What's the price?
right. All right. So the first one I got here is, what's your go-to prayer when somebody cuts you off in traffic?
I surrender and I say I'm not gonna let him ruin my day. So I basically stay still. I would tell you that I was the first one to be bitching at them when I was younger.
Same.
That's great. Would you rather do a 40-day water fast or babysit 12 spiritually unawakened toddlers for a weekend?
I have this hard thing for kids these days, which I didn't. So I will do the kids for sure. I already did the fasting and it's brutal.
Yeah. What's your guilty pleasure that your higher self pretends not to notice?
Well, these days are these amazing Norwegian crackers from Trader Joe that are gluten-free. They're like my crack.
Love Trader Joe's. I'm there every day.
Fran, do you have any that you want to ask?
Yes. If your crystals could talk, what would yours say?
Oh, I need to tell you that story with the crystals. I don't have any other than a tiger's eye, which also is a long story. Um, but I did have a very special thing with crystals. I wouldn't even know what to say about that.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I don't have crystals.
Okay. What causes spiritual malnutrition?
The wrong food. The wrong
Mm,
food. There's nothing quicker than eating the wrong food to disconnect me.
I feel that. What is food for your soul? What would you say the highest connecting food to your source light would be?
Well, the lack of it. And then second to that, I would say juice from fruit, freshly squeezed, and then fruit in that level, right? Water is the highest, then juice, fruit, and then fruit itself.
With water, what type of water, just for the viewers, what do you drink? Like, what do you drink? Do you just drink bottled water? Or do you have a specific like type that
No,
you think
I just
higher
have,
vibrational?
I have, yeah, well, I have very good filter. Not these days because I basically packed my whole home into a container and now I'm staying in one of our family properties. So I don't have a physical home anymore as I'm going to start touring the world. But I would say just filter your water with a really good quality filter to take out all the chemicals and the heavy metals.
Awesome. Um, would telepathy going fully online make therapy cheaper or way messier?
You wouldn't need it.
Yeah. If you affirm I'm abundant while eating ramen noodles, does it cancel out the negative effect?
Next question. I mean, that's kind of like, closing one of your eyes and saying, I like to see you. What's the point?
Describe your aura using only a movie title.
Meet Joe Black.
I love that movie. That was so good. I saw it in the theater. Um, like, what would you what would you say your very best practice is for full light embodiment?
Emptiness and
Okay.
surrender.
Yeah, definitely surrender.
The less of yourself that is within yourself, the more you'll be able to embody.
Yep, I tell everybody that I gave my free will to God's will a long time ago and everything became easier, and that's when the channeling really channels through you but you have to truly want it in your heart. You have to mean it. You can't just say the words.
It's kind of like side notes, but this is very important. So I apologize if I throw a monkey wrench in your
No, we love
fast
it.
questions, but I think this is extremely important. When you're going to have people over in your house and you clean your house and you cook good food and you set the table, but the more important and more prominent the celebrity that's coming to your house, the greater your preparation and the festivities. I don't understand for the like of me why people don't understand that if you're going to call the Holy Spirit and God Himself within your own awareness and your own temple, you don't clean your own body accordingly. We
Yeah.
are walking tabernacles, and the more you prepare yourself physically, emotionally, and spiritually to receive your higher self, God itself, within yourself, and embody that, the more clean and the more prepared you have to do, and the higher, the righteous way you have to walk, just like Jesus said, right? And people just don't get it. People are always looking for shortcuts. There's no shortcut to ascension. You
Yeah,
have to do the work. You
it's
have to do
true.
the cleaning. You have to prepare.
And that's so hard. People don't realize the food, just like me being like a true full on vegan, like it's work. And, of course, I want to, they're eating bad stuff in front of me all the time. Of course, you want to do it. But I say, like, I need to be a clear vessel for my books and for all that I'm doing for people because I need to be the highest version of me and vibrate the highest so I get to interface with the highest. My God self, the highest version of me, but people don't realize that it does hinder you, everything that you put in your mouth.
Yes. But also the way of how you behave, right? And
Mhm.
having mercy and compassion for your human self. I am guilty as everybody else some days to not be in my full embodiment. And, especially maybe I eat a cookie or something and I go down a couple of octaves. Well, I forgive myself. I'm human, right? This is
Mhm.
part of being my human experience. But I wake up at 4 in the morning, I meditate. Well, sometimes I'm being awake at, 333 or 111, whatever. I know I'm being called to the scene. Like I said, I empty myself, I meditate, I create space, and allow spirit to show me what it is that I'm supposed to do or say or be. And sometimes it's just sharing silence and being present and allowing spirit to do what spirit does when spirit wants to do it. And that's about it, because that's the other thing. We can fall prey of this sort of new age kind of mentality that we think we're in control of anything. We're not. The whole point of this is to surrender. And the act of surrendering is realizing you have no control over this and creating the space for spirit to come into you and materialize through you.
That's so deep. I just want to quote that. I love that. Thank you.
Amazing. One last question. Would you rather time travel to the beginning of Atlantis before there was any like duality, or a 30-second FaceTime with Yeshua?
No, Jeshua, come on. That's not a question.
I know, I'm just kidding. Well, you know what? Absolutely love what you're doing, what you've done, and you have so many amazing angels around you.
Mhm.
You're in the most beautiful vibrancy that somebody's who's embodied can be in. And I just want to mention one last time to go to the SAVIministries.com, subscribe to the newsletter, check out uh, the book section. His 3 books are on there, and we'll include all the details to. You could also get his books on Amazon. the all three of the your books that you have out there. The Journey Begins Within, and the Awakened Paths, and the SAVI Ministries Nature. And the newsletter is going to be so important because SAVI has a journey that is unlike most people, because he's embodied and he's in complete surrender, and he's going to be traveling the world, and he'll be updating on all these amazing events. You might even be able to meet him in a retreat somewhere if you join the newsletter. So definitely take the time just to go to the savvyministries.com and sign up for that newsletter. You will not regret it. You'll be able to follow what he's doing, what he's offering, all of these amazing experiences that he shared with us today. He's going to have even more amazing experiences to share, because we are in the greatest transformation of consciousness that has ever existed as a human collective ever. And he's so embodied, he's going to have all of these different divine experiences coming that he's going to be talking about. So you definitely want to check out that newsletter. And we are so grateful, SAVI, for having you on the Everything Golden podcast. And we look forward to what you're going to be doing in the future. And we definitely welcome you back on.
Thank you. I'm
true
here
pleasure.
for everybody. And thank you for having me and helping me spread the word that God is real. We are a piece of it. And the demonic is also real. And we have all a choice to make. Are we going to continue embodying the darkness and be completely asleep, or are we going to wake up and claim our divine sovereignty?
Yes. It's awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Great.
It's been a pleasure.
Everything golden. Finding your greatest love, your highest adventures, the joy that brings you into the paradise life that you've always wanted to be living. It all starts with you and going deep inside. Featuring Francesca Rose and David Starr, where miracles come true every episode.